Hello guys, here we have some scary Super Bowl stories. So lay back, relax, and listen close. Super Bowl 59 was supposed to be one of the greatest spectacles in sports history. Fans had traveled from all over the country to watch the Kansas City Chiefs face off against the Philadelphia Eagles at the state-of-the-art Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans. The stadium was packed with nearly 75,000 people and millions more tuned in from their homes. The excitement was electric. No one had any reason to believe that the game would descend into chaos and become a nightmare that would haunt those in attendance for the rest of their lives. The game started off normal, but by the second quarter, strange occurrences began to unfold. The temperature inside the dome inexplicably dropped by nearly 20 degrees. At first, people assumed it was just an issue with the stadium's climate control system. Then, the Jumbotron flickered erratically, showing distorted images, glitches that looked like screaming faces, blackened eyes, and twisted mouths. The images disappeared so quickly that most brushed them off as a malfunction, but those who saw them clearly were left with an unshakable feeling of dread. As the game progressed, players on the field began to feel the unease as well. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs, was seen on the sidelines rubbing his temples and shaking his head as if trying to clear his thoughts. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts, normally stoic under pressure, looked up at the stadium lights as if he had seen something move within the rafters. The referees, too, seemed unnerved, their whistles shaky and unsure. Then, as the second half began, the inexplicable blackout hit. The entire stadium plunged into darkness. What should have been a momentary inconvenience stretched on for an agonizing 10 minutes. People turned on their phones, but their screens glowed with static, refusing to show anything recognizable. The air grew thick, heavy, suffocating. Whispers spread through the crowd, not from the fans, but from somewhere unseen. Distant screams echoed in the dark, though no one could pinpoint their source. When the lights returned, something was terribly wrong. Several players were lying on the field, motionless. At first, officials assumed it was exhaustion or injury, but upon closer examination, their faces were twisted in expressions of absolute terror. Eyes wide open, mouths agape, as if they had seen something horrifying before they collapsed. Some were revived with difficulty, but others remained catatonic, unable to speak or move. They were rushed to the hospital, but medical professionals found no logical explanation for their condition. Meanwhile, in the stands, chaos erupted. People were found unconscious in their seats, while others stumbled aimlessly through the aisles, mumbling incoherently. Some fans clawed at their own skin, claiming to feel something crawling beneath. Security attempted to intervene, but many officers themselves reported hearing voices calling their names, voices of loved ones who weren't there. Officials shut down the game, citing safety concerns. Fans were told to leave immediately, though many were too shaken to move. Reports surfaced of shadowy figures appearing and disappearing between the rows of seats, eyes glowing faintly in the dim stadium lights. Some claimed to see a tall, gaunt figure watching from the highest rafters, unmoving, its hollow face barely visible. In the days that followed, the strange events continued. Fans who had attended the game suffered from vivid nightmares, dreams of being trapped in the dark, of something whispering in their ears, of hands reaching for them from the void. Some players who had been hospitalized refused to speak of what they had seen during the blackout, their only response being wide-eyed horror. A few quit football altogether, their reasons unknown. Even more unsettling, security footage from the blackout revealed something chilling. Though the cameras mostly displayed static during the event, a few frames captured impossible images. Hundreds of shadowy figures standing shoulder to shoulder on the field, facing the crowd. They had no faces, no defining features, just darkness where eyes and mouths should have been. The footage was quickly seized by authorities, and official reports dismissed it as a technical anomaly. But those who had seen it knew the truth. The stadium was thoroughly investigated, but no logical explanations were found. No power surges, no failures in the electrical grid, nothing. The incident was eventually chalked up to mass hysteria, an explanation the public reluctantly accepted. But those who were there knew better. A few weeks later, the Superdome staff reported hearing strange noises echoing through the empty stadium. Whispers, footsteps, the distant hum of an unseen crowd long after closing hours. Some refused to enter the building alone. One janitor, who had been working the night of the game, quit without notice, leaving behind only a single note, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "They're still here." In the months that followed, strange disappearances were reported. Several stadium employees failed to show up for work and were never seen again. Local authorities conducted searches but found no traces of them. Friends and family of the missing claimed they had been acting strangely in the days leading up to their disappearances, complaining of eerie voices, flickering shadows in their homes, and a creeping paranoia they couldn't shake. A documentary crew, intrigued by the incident, attempted to investigate. They were granted permission to film inside the stadium after hours. Story 2, their footage was never aired. The production company claimed technical failures ruined the recordings, but rumors surfaced that the crew had witnessed something so horrifying that they refused to speak about it. One crew member, who left the industry altogether after that night, was found weeks later, living in a motel miles away from New Orleans, rocking back and forth and whispering, "It's watching." The stadium remains in use, but those who work there know better than to stay too long after dark. Some seats are said to always feel ice cold, no matter the temperature. Occasionally, during games, fans report hearing faint whispers beneath the cheers of the crowd. And every year, on the anniversary of Super Bowl 59, the lights flicker, just for a moment. A reminder that something unnatural still lingers in the heart of the Superdome. Story 2. Super Bowl 57 was the most anticipated event of the year, a spectacle of sports, entertainment, and pageantry. Thousands of fans packed into Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and millions more tuned in around the world. The halftime show had just ended, an electrifying performance leaving the audience roaring with excitement. But as the third quarter began, something strange happened. The first sign of trouble came when the stadium lights flickered. At first, it was barely noticeable, a quick dimming, like a camera shutter closing for a fraction of a second. But then it happened again, and this time, the scoreboard glitched, displaying garbled text and static images of the players' faces, distorted beyond recognition. Some of the players on the field stopped mid-play, glancing around in confusion. The broadcast feed cut out for exactly 3.6 seconds. When it returned, the commentators stammered, unsure of what had just happened. Fans at home saw something different. A brief, horrifying frame of a massive crowd standing shoulder to shoulder in the end zone, their eyes blank and mouths gaping in silent screams. The network dismissed it as a transmission error, but those in the stadium knew better. Midway through the third quarter, the quarterback for the leading team, who had been dominating the game, suddenly dropped the ball and collapsed. His body convulsed violently, his mouth moving as if trying to scream, but no sound came out. Medical staff rushed to the field, but when they reached him, he sat bolt upright, eyes completely black. Then he let out an inhuman guttural wail that echoed through the stadium, sending a ripple of dread through the crowd. More players began acting strangely. Some stared blankly into the stands as if transfixed by something unseen. Others began mumbling in eerie synchronization, their voices blending into an unsettling drone. The referees huddled in a panic, unsure how to proceed. The Jumbotron suddenly cut to black, then flickered to life with an image of the field, only it wasn't real time. The screen showed the stadium as it would have looked decades ago, with grainy black and white footage of a game long forgotten. The players on the screen weren't the ones on the field, and the crowd looked eerily different, motionless, their faces contorted into expressions of fear and anguish. Whispers spread through the stands. Fans checked their phones only to find their screens filled with static. Some reported hearing faint voices through their earbuds, pleas for help, desperate warnings to leave. The temperature inside the stadium plummeted. Breath misted in the air, and the smell of damp earth and decay filled the concourse. As officials prepared to call the game off, the stadium lights cut out entirely. The darkness was absolute. For nearly 2 minutes, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, only the oppressive weight of silence. When the lights returned, the field was empty. The players were gone. The referees were gone. Even the medical staff had vanished. The crowd erupted in panic. People shoved toward the exits, but security had already fled. Some fans swore they saw shadows moving across the field, elongated figures stretching unnaturally under the flickering lights. Others claimed they heard distant cheers, but not from the present game, from something else, something ancient and unseen. The game was never officially concluded. Authorities locked down the stadium for investigation, but no bodies were ever found. The missing players and staff were never seen again. The broadcast was scrubbed from official records, with networks citing technical difficulties. But those who witnessed it firsthand knew the truth. The game had awakened something buried beneath the stadium, something that had been waiting for decades to return. Legends now surround Allegiant Stadium. Some say if you sit in the nosebleed seats alone at night, you can still hear the echoes of a game that never finished. Others claim the missing players can sometimes be seen in reflections, their faces twisted in silent agony. And every year, on the anniversary of the event, the scoreboard flickers to life on its own, displaying the final impossible score, 0-0, with a timestamp that never changes, 3:06 a.m., frozen forever in time. Reports of strange occurrences have only increased since that night. Maintenance workers refuse to enter the locker rooms alone, citing unexplained cold spots and whispers from the vents. Security footage often records figures walking along the field after hours, yet no one is ever found. One night, a lone janitor cleaning the stadium captured a chilling recording on his phone. The video showed a fog-like mist creeping across the field, forming the silhouettes of players in archaic uniforms, before vanishing into the ground. Several former players have come forward with disturbing confessions. One, who had been on the field during that fateful night, has since suffered from night terrors, waking up screaming about the Watchers. Another claimed he constantly feels like he is being followed, glimpsing shadowy figures in his peripheral vision. Most disturbing of all, a referee from the game was recently found wandering the Las Vegas desert, incoherent and muttering about finishing the game. The stadium management continues to downplay the rumors, but attendance at Allegiant Stadium has steadily declined. Season ticket holders often complain of an uneasy atmosphere, and new employees rarely last more than a few months. Tourists who visit the stadium claim to hear phantom whistles and the distant roar of an invisible crowd. The legend persists, growing darker with each passing year. What was meant to be the greatest Super Bowl of all time has become a chilling mystery, a cautionary tale of a game that should have never been played. And as the next season approaches, one question remains. If the game was never finished, is it still waiting to be played? Thanks for joining me on tonight's journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed the chills and thrills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a spine-tingling story. Until next time, keep your lights on, and remember, the darkest tales are the ones that feel too real.